All right, so in this series, Penny, who's originally from China, she hasn't seen a lot of these classic movies. And it was her request to start watching The Godfather. It's not like in Barbie.
You can tell them that you've never seen The Godfather and that you'd love them to explain it to you.
Ooh, are you guys watching The Godfather?
The Godfather.
I've never seen it.
Oh my God, you've never seen The Godfather? This movie is a rich blend of Coppola's aesthetic genius and a triumph to Robert Evans and the architecture of the 70s studio system.
Can you start the movie over and just talk through the whole thing?
It's considered one of the greatest films of all time. The American Film Institute, it was ranked number 2 of the greatest films of all time. Yeah, few films define cinema like The Godfather, but does it still hold up 50 years later? I mean, the movie takes place in the 40s, so they're making a movie about the past. Based on Mario Puzo's novel of the same name, it focuses on the powerful Italian-American crime family of Don Vito Corleone, played by Marlon Brando, when the Don's youngest son, Michael, played by Al Pacino, reluctantly joins the Mafia. He becomes involved in the inevitable cycle of violence and betrayal. Although Michael tries to maintain a normal relationship with his wife, Kay, Diane Keaton, he is drawn deeper into the family business. So what are your overall impressions of one of the greatest films of all time that is 50 years old? Because I know how you feel about old movies.
Okay, it didn't feel like it was made 50 years ago.
That's because we watched it in 4K. On this beautiful steelbook 4K release of The Godfather. And we watched it in Dolby Vision. So that's why it looks good.
Okay, sure.
But I mean, we've been watching The Sopranos, and you're probably a little bit more intrigued about the Mafia now, right? Is that what kind of spurred you?
I've always been intrigued by crime family. Watching The Sopranos kind of like prep you on what to expect, like general story. I'm not talking about like specific business or anything, but like generally you kind of know that.
Well, yeah. I mean, before The Godfather, you probably watched that scene in The Sopranos where Tony's watching those black and white mafia movies.
Yeah.
He's like, you sing, They talk like that. That's what gangster movies were like before The Godfather. And The Godfather basically changed the game. And that's what, I mean, it inspired Goodfellas, it inspired The Sopranos, it's inspired every mafia movie after that. So mention some key characters. There's Michael Corleone, he's the main character. It's basically his pretty much being corrupted, by coming back to his family because he's like an army veteran. He's coming back from the Great War, So then there's Don Vito Corleone, played by Marlon Brando. So what do you think of these performances? The two main performances here, Michael and Don from Al Pacino and Marlon Brando.
For Michael, I think he was pretty good. At first, you kind of think that he's just kind of like a chill dude from a rich family, but doesn't want to be involved in a business, right? And then, as the story goes, he starts to show more. I don't think he is taking a big interest in part of this, but he is taking his responsibility as part of the family.
It's a call to action, really. I mean, he gets sucked into it because his dad's almost killed.
Yeah.
And he's there to save him in one of my favorite scenes.
You mean the three people dinner scene?
That, but also when he goes to visit his dad and all the guards are gone, and then he's moving his dad around and he hears someone coming, and it's like, what was he, the baker or something?
Yeah.
And he takes the baker outside, act like he's a gangster. He's like, put your hand in your pocket, act like you got a gun, and then they drive off. And then afterwards, well, this is a very pivotal scene, actually, if I'll talk about it real quick. He's like trying to get a cigarette, trying to light a cigarette. He lights a cigarette for him, but then that's when Michael, he's not shaking. He studies his hand, and he's like, that's like the realization that he's probably made for this life.
Yeah, I guess I didn't notice that part, but that would make sense.
Yeah, it's funny because that guy's like,
yeah, the baker dude is very nervous. That I remember.
But that's the switch, because he's like, all right, I'll kill these motherfuckers, like the cop and the dude. So yeah. Marlon Brando, I mean, he's kind of got like a strange thing going on with his mouth. You were asking about that.
Yeah,
right?
is that just made for the
think,
movie?
Yeah, he's not like that. Actually, they aged him up because he's not that old.
Yeah, I guess you can kind of tell. It does look a little bit like.
Did you notice how?
real.
Do you notice how dark the movie is? Like it's very dark.
Not because it's an old movie.
No, they made it dark because to hide his makeup. So.
Like his chain does look a little like fake, you know?
Yeah.
Like Popeye.
Yeah, we talk about some of the supporting performances too. There's James Caan as Sonny, the oldest. You always got a hothead. That's
Really?
a trope of mafia movies.
Yeah, you kind of know that a character like that is gonna die tragically.
Yeah. Were you expecting him to die then?
I didn't expect him to die, but I know he is not gonna be the leader.
Yeah.
And for someone to, but he was the leader at the time.
He was being groomed to be the leader.
Yes. So the only way for already leader become not a leader, he has to die. Exactly. Right? What's the other way for that to transition, right? So I kind of know that he's not gonna last long, but I also didn't expect him to be like in a setup like that and die like that. It was very sudden.
Yeah, he got fucking destroyed.
it was very sudden. Like you didn't even think that.
It's an
happen.
iconic scene too.
Yeah.
There's so many iconic scenes in this. But Robert Duvall, he plays Tom Hagen, the concierge, which that's basically Silvio in The Sopranos. But he's not like Italian or anything. They kind of give a brief summary of that.
It's like the adopted son?
Yeah, he's like the adopted son, and he was like groomed to work under Don Corleone. So, yeah, I mean, we haven't watched a whole lot of Robert Duvall movies, but he's a pretty big actor.
He's good.
Yeah.
He's good. He always keeps a pretty clear head.
Yeah.
Which is probably why he did not die in the movie. Because a lot of people died in the movie, right?
Yep. There's also Diane Keaton, who plays Kay. That's Michael's love interest. He kind of brings her around, and then he fucks off to Sicily for a little bit, gets married, becomes a widow, and then comes back. Okay, he waits a little bit. He said he's been back a year, so he doesn't like.
Sure, you went missing for like 3-5 years, and then you come back, and you're like, I think you should still marry me.
But I don't think she gets a whole lot to do in this movie until like the final scene where she's confronting him, but she gets a lot more to do in the second movie.
She did confront him.
Yeah.
And he lied.
Yeah.
And she realized at the end. She realized it was probably a lie.
But yeah, like I said, this is kind of like a pivotal thing because they're making these criminals and making you empathize with them and stuff. So it's kind of like a tragedy almost, but
yeah. I mean, nobody's perfect. If you are the leader, the boss of a mafia, you probably like won't be the perfect person like in relationships. That's just kind of expected.
So this is directed by Francis Ford Coppola. I don't know. We watched Dracula, the one with Keanu Reeves.
Sure.
He's known as like one of the greatest directors, really. He made like 3 great films back to back to back. The Godfather Part 2, and Apocalypse Now. Yeah, what do you think of the film's pacing and the building of tension? I mean, did you ever find it like too slow?
I guess the beginning is a little slow because there was a wedding going on and it's like slowly introducing, like it's setting things up and like trying to help you understand how the business is, how it works, right? And then you're kind of just like, getting exposed to all these characters and you don't know like their dynamics yet.
Yeah.
So the beginning, I want to say it is kind of slow, but like you kind of learn to like be patient with the beginning of any movies, really. I find the attack, the assassin on Corleone seemed to be a little like unexpected. Like at first the pace was really, really slow, and then all of a sudden he's just getting killed. I'm like,
that's how it is in mafia movies. Like you don't expect it. Yeah.
I like, isn't this the Godfather? And he died?
Yeah, and that's an interesting note too that I just read because we're talking about oranges, right?
Yeah.
I talked about The Sopranos, and it wasn't really a purposeful thing in The Godfather because they thought the movie looked too dull and drab, so they just put oranges in a bunch of scenes.
For a little color.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly why. And then they just went with it with other, like The Sopranos,
Okay.
like with the oranges and
That's
stuff.
that's
so.
funny. It's interesting, but like it did like kind of. It was a shock that he was shot. It was also a shock that one of his sons is like. I think there were 2 occasions in the movie that son couldn't do anything. It's like,
yeah,
dude,
Fredo. Yeah, Fredo. Fredo kind of sucks.
I have a gun, but like everybody has already like ran off. Like, so I don't, dude, that's your dad, right? At first I thought he's just a driver.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, a driver don't know what to do. That's perfectly fine because drivers are not trained for that. This dude live with the family and never get trained for like emergency like this.
He's considered like the fuck up of the family. So
And
the kids.
he didn't get many things, and like there wasn't really a story for him yet, right?
No. Like, well, they go more into him in the sequel. Like every good
Oh yeah,
sequel.
yeah. I mean, at the end he did show up.
Yeah, during the Vegas thing, and he's like, "Don't ever go
defending the enemy."
Yeah, he's like, "Never go against your family."
Ah.
Yeah, and that goes with like the themes and symbolisms, like family and loyalty, right? Like a balance between your personal life and the crime world, like The Sopranos. Power and corruption. This is basically Michael's descent into the mafia, like his descent into hell, and it will go into some of the iconic scenes too. And like the American Dream, which I think...
Why do you call it descent?
Because it's not exactly...
It's not an ascent of him becoming the boss?
Becoming the boss, but then he's like, that's part of...
Spoiler alert. Is
Well,
he descending?
yeah, spoiler alert for a 50-year-old movie, okay? But it's like his descent into hell, like, because he
going
was
to
just
hell?
straight... Okay. Well, yeah, and I'll go into it. Like, so I don't even think his dad wanted this for him. That's the thing. He was grooming Sonny.
Yeah.
And then in that one scene where they bring him back home from the hospital, and he's like, "Where's Michael?" And they say, "Well, he's the one that killed them." And then he's like got this look of disappointment in him because he didn't want that life for him.
I know.
So, yeah.
Well, maybe it's because Michael... He see a lot of good quality and potential in Michael,
Well,
so
yeah.
he wanted him to have a normal person's life. But when you are very talented in a mafia family, you end up being the boss of the family.
Yeah, I mean, that's, the call to action, but I mean, it is a descent because it's gonna...
Nobody's going to hell. You also,
Okay.
you also said Mr. Soprano is a bad person, which I still failed to see.
He's a piece of shit. All right, I want to talk about another theme is like the American Dream, which I think is more prominent in The Godfather Part 2 because it's like half prequel and half sequel. But yeah, we'll probably talk more about that theme in the next one. But yeah, some iconic scenes and quotes. Well, what you said, the opening wedding scene, I mean, it is iconic because everyone's going to see The Godfather. You have that iconic thing where he's petting a cat. Yeah. And basically the cat wasn't supposed to be there. It was a stray cat that he just brought in for the scene.
Seem more domestic than our pet.
And then there's the famous quote from that is that, "I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse," which they say several times in the movie, which I didn't realize. I just knew like at the beginning, but...
Oh, they said it many times,
yeah.
and Michael said it too.
Yeah.
Many times.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
I'll make him an offer he can't refuse.
My father made him an offer he couldn't refuse.
So what's your favorite scene? Or do you have one?
I don't have a favorite. I think there are a few scenes that just kind of like stick to your head.
Yeah.
I think obviously the murder and not the murder, like the revenge in the restaurant.
Yeah, the restaurant assassination. Yeah, it's definitely.
I was
It's like
very
tense.
very nervous for him because I don't know if he's ready, and the way he looks like he's gonna break. I don't know if this gonna work or is he gonna end up dead. I don't know.
Exactly.
And the way he acts too, like you can tell he's nervous. I'm like, dude, do you got this or not? But I guess I feel like a relief, seeing him like actually went through it.
I mean, that's how great the film is for a 50-year-old film, and it still builds that tension for you.
Yeah, it does.
Even for someone who doesn't like old movies. The baptism scene and its editing, like, and this is what I'm talking about, his descent into hell, because he's like baptizing his niece, and then while and it's intercutting with like all these assassinations that he's killing all of his enemies, all of his father's enemies,
which is it's a cool thing.
Yeah, but then and he says like, do you renounce Satan and stuff and everything? He says, yes, I do. And
that's very intentional, I think. So, it almost like indicate that he is the demon or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, what can you do? You're the youngest of all the leaders of all families, and they're gonna step on you.
Yeah.
If you don't do something. But I am surprised that his decision is to just kill them all. It's like, that is a big fucking operation, and if you failed in one or two of those operations, you might have a big comeback.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. He has a good team, I think. Right? Because he didn't personally do it. It was just,
Yeah.
He had, people execute for him, and I'm glad that was successful.
I'm glad these people died.
I'm going to hell too.
Yeah, so The Godfather, I mean, it was a big change for movies. It's like one of those pinnacle films. I mean, like I already said, it influenced like the Goodfellas, The Sopranos, Scarface, and it still has that staying power.
I kind of thought like it was going to be a story focusing on the dead. But like the dad was pretty much didn't really. I guess it's in part 2, right? You said it's kind of like half prequel in part 2 that like tells you like his life.
Yeah.
But at least in this one, he shows up and he gets shot and he's recovering and he's old and he died.
Well, I mean, the movie is about Michael, and
I didn't know.
Getting that point to being the Godfather.
Okay, I thought the Godfather is the specific one person.
Well, it kind of is, because he's like the boss of that family now.
Yeah, I guess like the Godfather is a title. It's not one person, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of a title. I didn't know that at all.
Yeah. So, what's your overall thoughts and final score?
I think this is a really good story. I think, and the fact is, the story is not that simple. It's pretty complicated. It went into all directions on different people and different people's stories, and to like have a story of Michael from being somebody not important to the family to become the boss. I think the story is like very full. It's not like a simple line of it. I feel like it's multiple lines, but they tie up together really well and never make you feel like, obviously it didn't say 3 years later, 5 years later, right? But like you get that, and it's almost like you are with a family and you are living those moments at the same time, and you're following everybody's life story, and you see everything that happens behind the scene, their secret assassination and everything, and their plans, and it's a great movie. I think my score for this one is a 4.5 out of 5.
Okay. Not as good as Deadpool and Wolverine, huh? Oh no, Penny likes an old movie.
I like a lot of old movie. I think I rated the same score for Beetlejuice.
Okay.
Is that not old?
Well, yeah, I'd probably go 5. I mean, it's just a classic, and no matter how many times I see it, it's just still engaging, and I always pick up like new things here and there. Just like the whole hand thing with Michael, and it's like,
cool. That's a cool idea.
Just like these little subtle things, but yeah, just great performances. It's just like, it is one of the greatest films of all time. I'm looking forward to revisiting The Godfather 2, because it's been a long time since I've seen that too. So yeah.
But if you like The Godfather 2 better, there's no better score because you already rated 5 out of 5.
Oh no, what am I gonna do? Rate it 5.5? I don't know. It'll be another 5 out of 5 probably.
Leave the gun.
Technical only.
Yeah, that's our review of The Godfather. Penny watched it for the first time and loved it. If you want to watch more of what Penny watches for the first time, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe and hit that bell icon. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think of The Godfather. Let us know what Penny should be watching that she hasn't seen. And we'll see you later.